This is Coach Lee, and you're listening to The Door Report.
This is better. But you have a smile for miles.
Oh, thanks.
This isn't going well.
There was no bump. He was embarrassed. I shouldn't be held accountable for a grown man's athleticism.
They don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Welcome back into The Door Report, and welcome into episode 321 on a hot and humid Tuesday evening, June 24th, 2025. I am Will Byrum, joined as always by my co-host, Trevor Hulan, a.k.a. Hack Squat Jim Duggan. Here at The Door Report, we are presented by 615 Collectibles. If you're into sports cards or sports memorabilia, check out 615 Collectibles on eBay. Items include NFL team packs, graded cards, individual cards, and more. You can find them at ebay.com/str/615collectibles, or you can just go to ebay.com and type in 615 collectibles in the search bar. Shipping is always fast and free. Trevor, we've said previous episodes, nothing to talk about, whatever, no news on the Vanderbilt front. This is the last episode where we have anything but regular season Major League Baseball to talk about until football news starts coming out. How are you feeling?
So I do love Major League Baseball. It's a big Reds fan. Missing the Chase Burns debut right now for this. But yeah, dude, summer for podcasting is absolutely brutal. I don't know what we're going to talk about for the next four or five more weeks. Yeah,
4 or 5 more weeks of summer,
and then but eventually fall camp starts in summer, so we'll at least have something.
Then we can start digging into our offensive preview, defensive preview, schedule preview, and predictions, all that sort of stuff. So that will start in August, or second week of August.
Yeah,
first
or second week of August.
Yeah, we'll get that all mapped out and planned out. I have not done that yet. That is my fault. But we do have some new baseball commits to discuss with Alex Kurbegov in segment 1. He will be joining for just segment 1, as he has been called in to some emergency meetings of some kind. Vanderbilt active in the portal. A little bit, at least.
A lot of it.
We will not hit on this a lot in this episode, but just to let our subscribers know, as of July 1st, officially the On3 transition will go live. There will be more information that will come out about that across social media, on Twitter. The Door Report is keeping on rolling. We are still continuing to be a part of the On3 network, carrying that over. And as we get more information, we will share it with you. But for subscribers, it should just be better. That's the gist of it. You should just have more access to better information, more writers, more recruiting information, more transfer portal information, and the On3 rankings. So anybody with the current Rivals subscription, you will just be automatically transferred over to an On3 Sports subscription and grandfathered in with your Rivals subscription rate. So just need to put that out there early.
Yeah, you won't have to change your login or anything like that, or there'll be no, as far as we know, no payment changes.
No payment changes.
It's
as of right now.
You just log into on3.com with your Rivals information, and there you go. You're
and,
on the Vanderbilt
I'm
site.
sure there will be an email sent by On3 with more detailed information to all subscribers, and we will try to keep you updated as we have more information. There's a lot of back-end stuff going on right now with TDR that I've got to dig into, but that's enough about that. We will keep you guys updated. In segment 2, after Alex helps us break down the baseball commits, me and Trevor are going to talk a little bit of football commitment, as Trevor was able to put out an article for recent Vanderbilt football commit, Jace McCallum. You can find that article on thedoreport.com if you would like to. Then we will discuss the CWS, LSU winning a national championship, 6 straight for the SEC. We will briefly touch on the NBA Finals results, Game 7 victory for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and then we will get to premium message board questions. And we have quite a few, so we will get to as many of those as we possibly can. Trevor, anything else you want to talk about in the intro here before we get to segment 1?
Do you think this is going to be one of the shorter episodes we've had in a long time?
I think so.
I think so as well.
We have a lot of premium message board questions, so that'll help us fill a lot of time here. But this will be a nice introduction because basically every episode we've released for the last six months almost has been between an hour and 2.5 hours, at minimum an hour 15 or so.
Yeah.
So this is the summer version of TDR. A lot of random discussion points and shorter episodes. So thank you to everybody for tuning in and sticking with us over these dark summer months.
Do you think we hit an hour today?
We'll see. The premium message board, you never know where it's going to go.
I think we hit an hour.
I think we hit an hour. We're fun guys. We like to just sit back and discuss ball a little bit.
Just chit chat.
Segment 1 is coming up with Alex Kurbegov for some incredible baseball knowledge about Vanderbilt's recent commits. But before we get into all that and more, we are now a part of the Rivals Publisher Network. Visit vanderbilt.rivals.com today and subscribe, or thedorreport.com today and subscribe to a monthly or annual premium membership and support TDR. You can use code DOORREPORT, all capital letters, no spaces, for a 30-day, no-risk free trial. I actually don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if that code works anymore.
We're kind of learning with you guys.
Okay, so you can try it. Anybody that wants to subscribe, you can try it. It might be active for the next 6 days, maybe. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Door Report. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. And while you're at it, give our podcast 5 stars and a review on iTunes. It's now time for segment 1.
Miss the most your wife?
No, providing shareholder value.
Welcome in to segment 1 of episode 321 of The Door Report. We are joined by TDR writer. I've really got to update your title on the website. You're still a contributor on there, but TDR writer Alex Kurbegov. Alex has had a very busy day. Thank you, Alex, for taking the time on a late evening joining us here.
Of course, my pleasure.
Alex has some very important information to break down for us. In fact, basically the only important information we have surrounding Vanderbilt athletics of any kind. Alex is going to help us work through the recent Vanderbilt baseball commits. Most of them have been out of the transfer portal, but also a top 50 overall national prospect they picked up on the mound. And Vanderbilt also hired a new hitting coach. So I think we will start with the hitting coach side of things. Vanderbilt hired former VandyBoy and was the Cleveland Guardians assistant hitting coach, Jason Esposito. Very positive reaction from most Vanderbilt fans, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, Trevor, I kind of want to hear your guys' opinion on Jason. Alex, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to. First thing I'll say with anything about coaching in baseball is that despite what I act like on Twitter, I don't know everything. And so specifically what it's like coaching hitting at a college level, I really couldn't tell you anything about what that's like. All that I know is what I hear from other people, and what I heard from other people was a lot of really, really good things. So basically I looked into what people had said about him. He was with the Guardians, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And the Guardians organization. Basically the summary of what everyone said about him there is that he is really, really personable, really, really good at breaking down complex things and giving it to hitters in a digestible, easy to understand way, and that he's on the cutting edge of technology 24/7. And he's always looking to integrate new things with technology. And I think that based upon what I know of where the deficiencies were in the last 2 hitting coaches, and then just the overall composition of the staff, I think that someone with those skills are the exact thing that Vanderbilt needed. And that's why I'm really, really high on the hire. To be pretty frank about the last 2 coaches, I think that the biggest problem with Baxter was that he would overload the players with information. He'd had no experience coaching hitting prior to being at Vanderbilt. And it just looked like the players were thinking too much, right? Whenever he was the hitting coach and they would be going against anybody with any type of a quality pitch. They were just clearly overloaded. The problem with King, more or less what I heard, was that didn't use technology and had a really overly simplistic approach to hitting. And so you got to find somewhere kind of right in the middle. And from all that I can tell, Esposito is that correct, like Goldilocks zone of uses technology, is always on the cutting edge of the new developments and how we train baseball, but also is really, really good about breaking things down in a way that college hitters can understand. And then just the other side of things, I saw some critiques and concerns about he's never coached in college before. He's unproven as a head hitting coach. I totally understand that. And I don't think that those are necessarily invalid critiques. However, I would just urge people to remember that it's not the Baxter situation where he's going to be the head of both hitting and recruiting. You got Ty Blankmeyer, who might be the best recruiter in the country, heading up that area of things. So he does not need to be the A1 recruiter that Mike Baxter was. Frankly, his role with recruiting is going to be helping with talent identification. And then once you get recruits on campus, can he be personal and can he convince them that he's going to develop them, which I think he's very qualified to do. And then as for like, he hasn't coached hitting to college hitters before, I don't think that there's that big of a difference between coaching 18 to 22-year-olds who are coming up through the minor leagues and then are young players for the Guardians organization, and then coaching 18 to 22-year-olds who are at college. At the end of the day, hitting is hitting. Those two things are translatable. And yeah, that's why I think that it's a really, really solid hire.
I totally agree with everything Alex said. The only thing that I'll add, and this is to piggyback off what Alex just said about not having college hitting coaching experience versus working in a farm system. I think what Alex, what you just brought up is a great point. I think too, in order to ease those concerns for a lot of people, I think we also have to remember that not in every case, but in a lot of the cases in farm systems, you're dealing with dudes that are the same age in those AA, single A organizations as who are in college. A lot of those kids forego college to go pro. So you're still dealing with 18, 19, 21, 22, 23-year-olds, just in different locations and organizations. So I think that's a great point.
You guys said on it perfectly, and I feel validated in my initial thought where they are valid criticisms, like you said, Alex. I mean, he's never been the head hitting coach before, hasn't coached in college. I feel like there is the least amount of transition needed, and the game is a lot more similar in baseball than it is in either football or basketball. I feel like you have to coach unbelievably differently in football and basketball, and baseball is still baseball. I mean, and you're still taking that extreme jump in level and coaching young guys through a farm system, young prospects. So it's also different than Jason King in the capacity of recruiting hitters in. I just think having a younger guy, I know Mike Baxter was similar to this story, but having a younger guy, a former player, somebody that can relate to the players more, I think that's more important than Tim Corbin realized it was, as Tim Corbin has continued to age. And that just is what it is. Once you hit 60, you connect with 18-year-olds a little less. Once you hit 28, you connect with 18-year-olds a lot less. So I think that's a big part of this, is just injecting more youth into the program. And like you said, recruiting has certainly hit an uptick, and that's what we're talking about next. Ty Blankmeyer. So recent commits. Do you want to start with, well, we'll start with the easier ones. There was a very recent commit that happened about 20 minutes before we started recording with Alex here. But number one, Mac Whitcomb, wings up, Tennessee Tech catcher, OVC Player of the Year, commits to Vanderbilt. What's your thoughts on Mac?
Very positive. I think that's a really, really good pickup. That is a middle of the order bat you can just plug and play in your system. The one weird thing is that the positional fit isn't like 100% there, because you did have a starting catcher returning in Colin Barzy, but Mac Rose hit the portal. Because I don't want to be rude to any former player, I'm not going to say my thoughts on that. But let's just say Mac Whitmore, the Mac for Mac trade, is a really, really big upgrade for Vanderbilt. But so he'll be the backup catcher, I think, because Barzi's defense is a bit better. That being said, he's a really, really serviceable option behind the plate. There's no problems with his defense. I just think that Barzy is an above average defender, and Whitmore is average. But he's going to probably play DH would be my guess. And I mean, you want me to break down his game, it's really, really hard to find someone who is going to fit with like credit transfers and just the restrictions about like it's really hard to take seniors, academic restrictions, etc. There's a lot of hurdles to jump through. And you found a guy who hit 360 with 15 home runs last year. That's impressive. Why don't get into specifics? He also drew a lot of walks. I'm pretty sure his OBP was almost 500, which I know that that's in the OVC. It's not the SEC, but having an OBP near 500 at any level in college sports is insanely impressive. His slugging percentage was 649, which like blew every Vanderbilt hitter out of the water, like absolutely. And then his OPS was above, I think it's 1,134, 1.134, which I think was nearly 150 points above the next highest Vanderbilt hitter. So by all means, he had a much better season than any Vanderbilt hitter. And I know that it was at a lower level, but it's still really hard to find anyone with those kind of stats. Just right there for the taking. My one critique is that his K rate was a little bit high. I think that you might see a little bit of a strikeout issue once he starts to face elite off-speed pitches. But I think you can live with a K rate that's a little bit high if he's going to be hitting upwards of 300 and producing a good amount of power. The one other thing that I'll hit on is he has had a lot of success against Vanderbilt. I can understand why Tim Corbin wanted to go get him, because as a freshman, he went 4 of 5 with 2 home runs against Vanderbilt in the midweek game versus Tennessee Tech. And it's pretty clear that he can handle velocity because that second home run was an oppo shot off of a 100-mile-per-hour Grayson Carter pitch. And it wasn't a bad pitch either. I mean, we're used to with Carter, everything was either straight down the middle or way out of the zone. That one was painted on the corner, and he took it oppo like well over 375 feet. So he can handle velocity. You already know that. Off-speed pitches, I mean, that's an adjustment for everyone, but could be a little bit of swing and miss, but that's the only weakness I see with him. He's going to be a elite DH, and he's going to hit for a high average, and he produces a lot of power with his hits too. So home run get by Tim Corbin, I think.
Bats. Mm-hmm. That's what we talked about. And Vanderbilt continued down the stretch of picking up more bats with the Johnstone brothers. Vanderbilt is going to have Johnston, Johnstone, and Johnstone in that lineup. That's going to be brutal for announcers, but 2 huge pickups for Vanderbilt in the Johnstone. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yep.
Johnstone. Mm-hmm. Johnstone brothers. Logan Johnstone from Washington State, a dynamic outfielder. You put up an article on thedoreport.com about him that's incredible. And then recently, as of how long ago, like 45 minutes, Carter Johnstone, his brother, committed to Vanderbilt as well, was a part of, I believe, Cal State Fullerton. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
I believe so.
The Titans, I think.
Yes,
right?
correct.
Ooh,
yes.
Who would have thought? 2 huge pickups. Alex, tell us a little bit about the Johnstones.
Yeah, so I am very, very high. Almost like, I mean, everyone is high. Everyone understands that these are good pickups, but I think that I'm even above the average, especially with Logan Johnstone, who's the older brother. I just actually talked to him earlier today, got to know him a little bit. Going to have an article coming out about him either tomorrow, probably tomorrow on the Door Report. He's a great guy, but beyond that, if you want to get into his actual play, he has an elite hit tool, and he's an outfielder. He played right field primarily for Washington State. He was a it was an above average defender at right field. In the MLB draft league where he is currently playing, he is the primary center fielder. So there is a real possibility that he could be a center fielder for Vanderbilt, in which case he would be like an elite offensive center fielder. I would really, really, really like the pickup if he can slide over to center field and play. It won't be RJ Austin, Enrique Bradfield Gold Glove defense, but it'll be solid. And I think that I, at this point, would trade elite defense for solid defense if you're going to go from RJ Austin, who hit like 220 in SEC play for John Stone, who had an OPS over 1,000. Anyway, getting into his actual game beyond the defensive end, he hit 337 with an OBP of 439 for Washington State last year. His OPS was just above 1,000. He hit a total of, 27 extra base hits, which was 17 doubles, a triple, and 9 home runs, which is really, really solid power production, especially if he slides over to that center field spot. And then he had as many walks as he did strikeouts, which is a really good sign that he'll probably be able to handle better pitching. He's a complete hitter. Really, really solid hit tool, makes a lot of contact, can produce power. I don't really see any glaring weaknesses in his game. He talked to me about this earlier today. He went to Driveline, which is one of the premier, independent kind of almost consultants to help
Kyle Bodie.
Yeah, yep, to help
A
baseball.
lot of other Vanderbilt baseball alum have worked with Driveline.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the baseball alum have worked with Driveline, and they're really, really well regarded around the entire baseball community. And he completely revamped his swing. He added strength, and you saw the immediate payoff. And I think that I don't want to get too high on him, but part of the reason why I'm really excited is that I think that he's primed for a really big power jump. And he actually agreed with me on this because if you look at Washington State, number one, it's a West Coast offense. So they're not hitting for power. They're very station to station, steal bases, hit for a high average. You don't have to hit it out of the park kind of an offense. His 9 home runs actually led the team by 4. The next highest had 5 home runs. So they didn't coach power whatsoever. And then also the simple fact that they're playing in Washington where it is cold and rainy all year.
Alex, I was going to make that point.
Yeah.
Pullman, the ball's not going to carry in Pullman like it will in Nashville in the warm time.
Not at all. So I think that he is a prime candidate, even though he's going to be facing better pitching. I think that some of those doubles are going to turn into home runs, and he's, in my opinion, I think that he's primed to be a 300-plus hitter because, again, the hit tool is elite. He's hitting 400 in the MLB Draft League, and for comparison, Riley Nelson hit 333 in that last year. So that should tell you what kind of a hit tool this guy has. And then, again, it looks like he's going to be an even better power hitter. And I don't know if he's with Driveline again this summer, but I would imagine he's continuing to do work with them and he's going to be improving.
I'll say this too, just to hit on this little tidbit of Driveline. If our listeners aren't familiar with Driveline, if you're super deep into baseball, you're pretty aware. But Driveline is not just amateur, college level, high school level players. They tailor their services to Major League Baseball, and not just all Major League Baseball players, but Cody Bellinger goes there. Julio Rodriguez goes there. The best of the best all-stars go to Driveline to work on their mechanics. So Driveline is a highly, highly, highly regarded consulting firm almost for baseball. Kyle Bodie, the founder of it, does wonderful stuff and is highly regarded amongst the best. That Bryce Harper, another guy, changed his swing at Driveline. They're a big deal. They're a really, really big deal. So don't be like, oh, he went to some personal trainer. No, Driveline is different.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side of the ball, pitching, also very important. Aiden Stillman, the number 50 overall prospect in the country, I believe 6'3", 190 pounds or something like that. How excited are you for him? Do you think he is a guy that makes an immediate impact next season?
Yeah, I think that he is. He's currently Vanderbilt's 4th highest rated recruit. He's more highly rated on perfect game than Ethan McIlvain was. I think McIlvain was 52. He's number 50. Stillman is. And he by all means has a pretty sterling track record. He throws a fastball up to 95. He has some really good off-speed pitches. He's a Team USA guy. He has a lot of experience with them. I don't remember the exact tournament that they were playing in, but he was playing for them in this last year in an 18U tournament, and they were in the quarterfinals. He got the start, and he threw 6 pitches of 1-hit ball against Mexico. So he's that good of an arm. If he's going against international competition and he's throwing 6 innings of 1-hit ball, that's impressive. You don't see many people get to campus who can do that, but I think that there's a really good shot that he actually does. He's kind of rated around that like late third, early fourth round of the MLB draft, but those are guys who can get to campus now with NIL, and I think that Vanderbilt would be really, really smart to allot a good amount of NIL to getting him to campus. And I didn't hit on Carter Johnstone. Did you want me to get to him at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, I'll just go ahead and circle back to him. I talked about Logan before. Carter, elite numbers for a freshman. He hit 344, had an OBP of 431, slugged just over 500, had a OPS just shy of 1,000, hit 14 doubles, 3 triples, and 7 home runs as Cal State Fullerton's primary third baseman. I was watching like this kid take at bats. I love his swing. I absolutely love his swing. It is picture perfect left-handed swing. He has a really, really mature approach. He just like his brother, actually, he also struck out 30 times and walked 30 times. Again, for a freshman, number one, that's really impressive. Number two, to do that as a freshman is even more impressive. Like, that's just, you don't see many freshmen do that. Even Rustin Rigdon, who drew a ton of walks, he struck out more than he walked. So yeah, I love how his bat projects. He's also a guy I think could take a big power jump. I mean, if you watch him swing, he clearly has the bat speed to hit over 10 home runs in a season. And once again, I mean, he comes from a West Coast offense that just, I mean, it doesn't emphasize home runs at all. I think Cal State Fullerton hit like pretty significantly less home runs than Vanderbilt on the year, which is saying something. And their team leader had 12. I think he was third on the team with 7, which would have ranked 5th for Vanderbilt. So I think that if you get him into an environment with Jason Esposito where they're going to be coaching how to hit for power, I think that you're going to get some of that power, and that this is also a really, really solid defensive option. I think Brody Johnston moves to shortstop, and then you're going to have Carter Johnstone at third base. And that's, I mean, John Stone was a shortstop all the way until he got to college, and he's a plus defender at third. And so you're going to have a really, really solid defensive left side of the infield. He's a really, really solid bat. I mean, it's harder to be more. I can't find anything to complain about with any of these pickups, and really impressed with what Tim Corbin and Ty Blankmeyer have done for this offense in a short amount of time.
You kind of answered the board question already. That was the question. Did you think that if Johnston was going to slide over to shortstop, or how that would go? So that answers that one.
I think that basically solidifies it. And now you have a power bat. You basically have nothing but power bats on the third side of or the left side of that infield.
Yep.
With Johnstone and Johnston.
So that's a great breakdown of what they've picked up. Alex, you wrote a great article of what they needed this offseason. What else do they need to do? What else do you need to see for you to feel like this is a good offseason, or have they already reached that?
It's approaching there. Number one, they need pitching. They haven't picked up any pitchers in the portal. I understand that Stillman is an impact freshman, but at the end of the day, I would much rather pick up 1 or 2 proven portal arms than rely on a freshman to try and come in and have a really high leverage role. I still think that they need a starter. They need a starting pitcher from the portal. As good as Stillman is, I'm going to be concerned if they're trotting out a freshman or like an Alex Kranzler type as the starter. I mean, solid pitchers. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to dismiss them in any way. They're going to be really valuable. But if they're our third starter and you have Fennell and Nye as your 1 and 2 guys, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that. I would much rather get a proven starter from the portal, and there are plenty out there to get. So I think that's need number 1 right now. Need number 2 is a relief ace to replace Sawyer Hawks. There have been some murmurs and rumblings that Hawks might return. I don't know how, but he has another year of eligibility. And I mean, he didn't get invited to the draft combine, and for how elite he was this year, his stock is shockingly low. And I wouldn't be super surprised. I think that it's unlikely, but I wouldn't be 100% shocked if he does not get drafted where he wants to and elects to return next year because of Vanderbilt throwing a bag his way. And so obviously if he comes back, you don't need that relief ace, but I also don't want to bank on that happening, and your bullpen can never get too deep. So I still think you got to get one really good reliever. And then here's where the questions start to come in. I think Riley Nelson is officially at the point where I can say that he is more likely to return than to go. So I don't think you need to go after a first baseman really hard, but you still don't have much outfield depth whatsoever. Because, I mean, you're Austin, I know that some people say that he's coming back. I really don't think that he is. I have a hard time convincing myself that that would happen. So as of right now, you don't have a center fielder. So I'm wondering if they're going to go after a center fielder, or if they're going to try to rearrange your utility players, being Holcomb and Rigdon being the two big ones, or even Mancini, into a configuration where they could play. They could move one of them to the outfield who wasn't previously there. I think that the idea of either sliding, I think Rigdon could be a good center fielder. You could maybe have him play out there and then put Mancini at second, or vice versa, although I think Rigdon and Mancini at first and second respectively would be the better defensive option. Or they could just go after another center fielder and then tell Mancini basically to earn it. The only reason I'm saying that they really want to have Mancini there is that even though his season stats were disappointing, statistically he was Vanderbilt's best hitter over the last 4 weeks. He hit over 300 with, I believe, 3 home runs in 4 weeks, which is pretty impressive, and that aligns with the timeline of him having gotten healthy after his hamate injury and surgery. So I'm wondering if they're going to really prioritize having to get him in there because they think that there's more in the tank there. So I don't know. Do you get a center fielder? Do you move somebody around? That's for the staff to decide, but you absolutely have to get 2 pitchers, I think.
So pitching needs to be the focus. Vanderbilt fans need to be watching for news on the pitching side of things in the transfer portal. Makes complete sense. Trevor, anything you want to add on what Alex said? Because that was an incredible breakdown.
No, and we'll once again shout out. You guys need to sub to the board because there is nobody, and I'll stand by this. There is nobody in America that is a better baseball insider than Alex Kurbegov, and I mean that truly. Like, you want to talk about a dude who has been on it before anybody else has known about names, so on and so forth. Alex has been killing it in regards to Vanderbilt baseball. The best Vanderbilt baseball insider on the beat. It's not even close. Put him up there with Aria. Put him up there with anybody. He is the best.
The best. And you can find actually everything Alex is saying because publicly he's not releasing a lot of this inside info. You can find that at thedoorreport.com. Subscribe to a premium membership. Support TDR so we can continue providing this incredible coverage. Please do that, and you will get the best baseball coverage in the country.
I'll do a little bit of a shameless self plug here. Tim Corbin has built an impenetrable, previously thought to be impenetrable fortress. All I'll say is that TDR subs knew of the Mac Whitcomb commitment at least 24 hours in advance of that happening. Or the Logan Johnstone, I hadn't put out that he was committed, but I put out that he was a high priority target. And then they knew of the Carter Johnstone commitment well before that happening. So, look, shameless self-plug. I don't think anybody else was doing that. And TDR's got the portal sources, man. If you want the scoops, come on in.
Alex Kurba, scoop, God,
Scoop,
baby.
God.
Scoop, God. Alex, it's also an incredible Diego Pavia jersey you're rocking today. That's even more classy than a tuxedo or suit. Untouched.
It is.
Any other shameless plugs, your shameless self-promotion, Alex? I think we need to promote your Twitter for sure.
Promote his Twitter and his
Yeah.
interview that he's got tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. If you haven't followed me, I am at anchordown0714 on Twitter. Again, used to be a burner. Then I went legit, and there's no going back. And then another TDR plug, I have interviews with both Logan Johnstone and Aiden Stillman getting released within the next 2 days in all likelihood. And so sub to TDR, and you'll be able to read some articles hearing from those guys.
Yep. The Logan Johnstone article, I believe you've already written and sent over. That will go up tomorrow around around noon, afternoon time. So be on the lookout for that. And then can't wait to read that Aiden Stillman article once you're able to put that one together. Alex, the hardest working man in Vanderbilt baseball coverage, not even close.
It's really not. That's not an exaggeration. It is truly not.
Anything else you guys want to add on here before we head to the TDR cocktail break and get into segment 2 where me and Trevor talk nonsense?
I'll say this before we go. I just want to glaze Alex one more time. He also had the scoop on all of these guys before Ty Blankmeyer would tweet the eye emoji. People like, what's this about? He's like, go look 3 threads down.
Yeah, I think Trevor.
It's been up there for a couple hours.
We did record segment 1 and segment 2 out of order, and I think Trevor's feeling guilty about killing Alex in an Mary
there is a part of me. I'm not gonna lie. There is a part of me that does feel guilty.
I had to confront that while Alex was on the pod. So Alex,
we talked about it before we started.
I know
recording.
how
like,
disappointed.
I'm so sorry. I had to kill him.
I know how disappointed are you in Trevor, Alex?
I mean, I'm hurt. I'm saddened, but tomorrow's a new day, and it's on me to convince him otherwise.
I will say, I said the reason I killed you is because you said you would not join the dirty communist pigs. So that was my reason.
Well, hey.
Politically and ideologically, we could not have coitus or engage in a relationship.
And I respect that.
All right. Thank you to Alex for joining.
Our Russian spy.
Incredibly detailed breakdown of Vanderbilt baseball. And we will continue to discuss Vanderbilt baseball throughout this offseason as new information breaks.
Before we go, Alex, as our resident Russian spy, can you give us an update on what's going on in Tehran right now?
Unfortunately, I'm not at liberty to say this. However,
is there KGB in your house right now?
I cannot comment. on that.
Tells you all you need to know. All right, everybody out there, grab yourself a cold one. I would say, or a warm one, but you definitely need a cold one in this weather right now because we are about to hit the TDR cocktail break and then segment 2. So everybody out there, as I'll repeat myself, grab yourself a cold one, and we will be right back after the TDR cocktail break. Welcome back from the TDR cocktail break and welcome into segment 2. You just heard from Alex Kurbegov give an incredible breakdown of Vanderbilt's recent commits. Trevor, it's now time to go through the random BS portion of this podcast in this episode. First off, we'll keep it Vanderbilt related to get things kicked off. You had a phone interview with new Vanderbilt commit Jace McCallum and put up an article on thedoorreport.com. Great article. I encourage everybody to go out there and read it, but just go ahead and give some of your initial thoughts talking to Jace and what your kind of initial takeaways were.
Yeah, so initially, and this has nothing to do with football, he was and I posted this to the board. He was incredibly polite, very polite, very kind, very smart young man. It was a pleasure talking to him. He's very excited, and we discussed that in the article. He is very, very excited about the direction and the future of Vanderbilt football. I thought it was fascinating. I'll say this. I don't know if I included this in the article. Right now, he's at about 6'3". Unofficially, he said his latest weigh-in, he was about 245. He said that Coach Hay and Coach Black won him up to about 260. He's 17 years old already, 6'3", 240. Just for context, at the weight that he's at right now, that is the same size as Abdul Carter. And he's about a quarter of an inch taller and about 20 pounds heavier than Micah Parsons at 17.
Yeah, I should have led. He's an edge rusher.
Yes.
Sorry, for people that are not familiar with Jace McCallum. Great article on thedoorreport.com if you want some more information. We don't want to give away too much. A little tease to go to thedoorreport.com and subscribe. Help us out. Subscribe. Only $9.95 a month. Help us out. Anything else on Vanderbilt? football, basketball, anything else you got?
Well, we did just watch the Vanderbilt All Access before we
Okay.
recorded.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
The real takeaways I have is nothing super in depth. It just reminded me that that Alabama game was truly, and I mean this, and this is subject to change if I ever get married and if I ever have kids. I'm sure this will get bumped down in the list. But as of right now, that Alabama game is still the greatest day of my life. And that's not hyperbole. I truly believe, I truly mean that when I say that Alabama victory was the greatest day of my life.
Yeah, we just watched that before recording. I posted on the board. We just watched it before recording. It was great. Mm-hmm. I'm fired up for the season. So now I'm going to give my thoughts fully on it. Number one, Jerry Kill had one line, and it was incredible.
Yes.
Trevor, do you remember the exact line?
Oh God, it was. I can paraphrase. He's like, "Let's go out there and knock them on their ass, and then get in their face so they can smell our breath." Dude,
there was an F-bomb in there somewhere they bleeped out too. It got me fired up. The other part I really liked about the All Access was the focus they put on Steiner and the strength and conditioning program. I think that's something that we did talk about, and you specifically talked about a lot when Vanderbilt hired Robert Steiner. Mm-hmm. You were pumped up about it, saying that's going to make the difference, and we were pretty high on it. But I don't think we've hit on it enough.
I agree.
Throughout the success they have. He was just as key as any scheme implemented by Tim Beck. They have changed their entire repertoire and training regimen in the weight room. And off season two in the weight room with Steiner, I think you're going to see some incredible results.
And just to go back to last year, think about how healthy that Vanderbilt team was towards the end of last year, even with a banged up Pavia, compared to the year before last. Night and day difference. And so I think going into another offseason with Steiner as a strength and conditioning coach is going to be sensational. We also both agreed and mentioned whenever they were interviewing him, he got a lot of airtime. There's something about his eyes that, he looks ready to kill.
And I said before we started recording, I said he's constantly looks like he's ready to carry the boats, as David Goggins says. He looks like he's ready to storm the beaches. His eyes are just crazy, which is what you want to see out of your strength and conditioning coach.
Like if we got drafted and I was in a trench somewhere and I just look to my right and I see Robert Steiner in the trench with me, I'm just going to think, you know what, dude, I'm going to go home. I'm going to go home in one piece.
But there's a part that's obviously recruiting better players with better body types that can grow in and develop. But that team looked different last year. Mm-hmm. They looked bigger. They looked faster. They looked more athletic. Some of that is recruiting, but a lot of that can be attributed to the off-season weight training program. And I just want to keep reiterating how big of a jump you can possibly see in year two, where Steiner is familiar with Vanderbilt, familiar with this roster, a lot of returning guys. He knows how to push them to their limits. I'm excited to see what this team looks like coming out on the field August 30th.
I will say, too, one thing that I was a little bit surprised about, and someone might say spoilers, like, okay, dude, watch this. I'm not spoiling, 28 years later for you. No Diego Pavia airtime.
Nope.
Which I thought was fascinating.
It was Richie Hoskins,
Marlon
Sewell, a little bit of Fontenette towards the end. But really, no Pavia, no Stowers.
Miles Capers.
Yeah, none of the quote-unquote stars or bigger names. No Langston Patterson, no Brian Longwell. But still, great stuff from the SEC Network. And good to see a positive light cast on Vanderbilt. Now,
Richie Hoskins was awesome, too.
Was great.
White boy Rich.
Saying he blacked out and doesn't even remember scoring. He just remembers dancing after scoring in the Kentucky game. I encourage everybody to go watch it. If you haven't watched it, it's going to be on the ESPN app. Go watch it. I will say one criticism. It was narrated by Nate Bargatze, which is great. Not the best narration I've ever heard on one of those, I will say. I love you, Nate. Not the best narration. Maybe I'm being hypercritical.
No, it didn't get me hype. You know what I'm saying? You know who would have been a great narrator that would have got the juices flowing? Somebody like Jordan Matthews. Jordan Matthews would have got the juices flowing.
Yeah, that could have got it going. But yeah, shout out to Nate Bargatze for doing that, though. I don't want to shit on the guy. But yeah, it wasn't the best narration, but incredible.
Should have been Blake Fromming.
They kind of went into the spring as out.
Yeah.
They kind of went into the spring of 2025 as well and kind of looked forward to the season and what the expectations were. And I'll tell you, based on how the players are talking, Diego Pavia is not the only person in the locker room talking like that publicly.
Nah, Marlon Sewell said it.
Yeah, that is a message being preached across the board. And there was something at the end, and I don't care if we're spoiling it. Go and watch it.
Yeah.
There was something at the end where Clark Lee was talking about day one of the new season, going into 2025, and he pulled up and he said, "We are as close to 2-10 as we are to 10-2." And he pulled up the average margin of victory and average margin of defeat, 4 games on each side, and it was under a 1-score game. And that is the reason, and that is what is being preached in the locker room. People can call it crazy, and to some extent, I think it is a bit crazy talking about going to the CFP, winning a national championship, their championship program now, all that. That's a big step. But at the same time, Vanderbilt fans that watched every game remember, Clark Lee's right. They could have easily been 2-10, 3-9. They also easily could have been 9-3, 10-2. Mm-hmm. They lost by an average of 4.8 points, I believe, in 4 losses this year, and won by an average of 5.76 in 4 of their wins. They're right there. They were right there last season. A missed field goal by Brock Taylor, a last-second throw from Georgia State not being completed, and they have 8 wins last season. It's not that crazy. Is that going to be my prediction? I don't know. But the message in the locker room is not some insane pie-in-the-sky, moonshot, no facts behind it message.
I mean, you can make the argument, I don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy in a bullshit illegal motion call during the Texas game, and they could have beat Texas.
I mean, that's
not crazy.
You lost by 4 points to the number 5 team in the country. That's one of those losses. You lost by 3 points to Missouri. You lost by 4 points to Georgia State. The wins were right in front of you. That's 3 right there. And I know the Texas game got a little closer because of a last-second score, and then Vanderbilt didn't get the onside kick. But you're right there. Mm-hmm. That's the whole point. It's small minutia versus 2 years ago. It felt like they had to jump over the Grand Canyon to get to 6 wins. Mm-hmm. They jumped over the Grand Canyon. Now they just need to run the last 10 miles. It's still not an easy path, but it's a lot easier than going from 2 wins. I don't know if it's easier, but it's the same thing they did last year, basically going from 2 wins to 6 wins. It's the same type of jump.
Yep. Absolutely.
Anything else you have on that Vanderbilt All Access?
No.
All right. Getting off Vanderbilt topics briefly. The College World Series is over. College baseball is over. The 2025 champions are here. It is the LSU Tigers. 6 straight national championships for the SEC. After all the talking heads love to talk about how overrated the SEC was once again, and look what they did in the first round. Once again, the SEC won the national championship in baseball, by far, unequivocally, unapproached, not even close, the best conference in college baseball. Facts don't lie, numbers don't lie. Whatever you want to say. I'm not an LSU fan, so I'm not an SEC homer. I was rooting for Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, I was also rooting
I'm
for
not
Coastal.
Meaning to be an SEC homer, but it's like the facts are the facts. And I don't know why there's this other side that wants to argue it's not true. That's the weird part to me. I'm like, this is the most obvious one. This is way more obvious than football. Whatever. I think I'm arguing with myself at this point. Now, getting to that actual game, in Game 2, LSU won Game 1. In Game 2, in the first inning, Coastal Carolina's head coach, Kevin Schnall, was ejected, as well as an assistant coach, and he will be suspended for 2 games at the start of next season. He was ejected initially for, quote-unquote, arguing balls and strikes. He was supposedly warned. He was warned by, I want to get the name right of the umpire, Angel...
I forget, but it was Angel, because people were making Angel Hernandez connections.
Yeah, it was a different Angel. I keep wanting to say Angel Hernandez. That's not right. Campos? Is that right?
Angel Campos.
Angel Campos.
I believe so, Angel Campos.
One of the most unacceptable umpiring performances I've ever seen. His strike zone was fine for the most part. It's not what I'm talking about. In the College World Series, the coach said 1 or 2 things about the calls on the field, or balls and strikes. The umpire then went, "That's a warning," and shoot away head coach Kevin Schnall like he was a child. Shoot him away. Kevin Schnall got out and said, "A warning for what?" Said, "Arguing balls and strikes." And he said, "That's because you missed 3 in a row already." And then After that's all he said, proceeded to throw him out of the most important game of the season. Trevor, I'm going to need you for this part. Threw him out of the most important game of the season. I'm not the baseball guy the same way you are. I watched a lot of college baseball this year, though. I can even understand. I would disagree with throwing him out of a normal regular season game with what he did. Because in the rules, you can't argue balls and strikes, whatever. In that scenario, there is almost, I'm adding the almost literally nothing that could be said by the head coach of one of those programs to have him ejected from the College World Series in inning 1.
Yeah, so I agree. I think the ejection overall was unwarranted. I think even in a regular season game, I think that's unacceptable. I think one of the worst things in sports, and really particularly baseball, is umpires have what we call bunny ears, to where anytime they hear just the teeniest, tiniest thing, they get an ego trip and want to eject somebody. And typically, it's an unspoken rule. It's not an official rule in the Major League Baseball rule book, the NCAA rule book. Arguing balls and strikes is not going to get.
So I actually think it is in the NCAA rule book.
Well, what I was about to say that is okay. Most umpires are going to let that slide. Typically, whenever an ejection occurs is whenever you say the magic words. Now, you can say to an umpire, "That's fucking shit," or "That call fucking sucked." Mm-hmm. That's okay. The moment you say and direct it to the umpire and you say, your, and you direct it to them personally, that's when it's like it's over. And so it kind of is like an unspoken rule amongst college umpires and Major League Baseball umpires that it's like, unless you're just one of those guys like you're an Angel Hernandez that sort of has an ego trip type thing, you sort of let that stuff slide until it gets there. But I mean, I think personally too, I'm going to be honest, man, and I've never umpired in high-level baseball before. My first job was an umpire with my dad, and my dad actually umpired. My
first job too.
My dad, in all seriousness, for a very, very, very long time, umpired high-level travel baseball all across Middle Tennessee. Always behind the plate, tournaments, championships, teams from all over the place. I think my dad only ejected somebody once, and it was because they got physical with another coach or something like that. But like, even in that situation, it's like, if it's a championship game and somebody's directing it at you and it's like, you fucking suck.
Still,
dude,
man,
it's the College World Series, man. Like set your pride down and call the game. You know what I mean? Like, I hate that. Like, put your pride down.
That's my point. It's like an inferiority complex or something.
It's certainly it's notorious with baseball.
Yeah, and I don't,
more than any sport, I think.
This is the thing. There is nothing. This is my point, and people would have taken it to the extreme. Obviously, if I put this out as a tweet, with the nuance I said almost before, there's nothing that could have built up or could have been said in one half inning. That's my whole point. He did not give enough time with that warning. It was a warning and then immediate ejection. There was no warning. That should have still been part of the warning. And it just, I wouldn't be so vehemently angry about this if it wasn't game 2 of the College World Series. Of course, the coaches and players are running hot, you idiot. And then the funniest part, just the cherry on top.
And it's an elimination game, yeah.
Was the umpire running over to get in between Angel Campos and Kevin Schnall and tripping over Angel's leg and then claiming it was a bump from the coach who didn't even touch him. And then the all-time incredible quote that was from Kevin Schnall in the postgame, who gave an incredible postgame speech or postgame answer. And I thought about playing the full thing, but it's like 3 minutes. But he had an incredible quote where he said, "I should not be held accountable for another grown man's athleticism." Which is true. He did not bump him. He did not get that guy came running in, went chest to chest with him, and then got embarrassed after he tripped over another umpire's foot. That entire crew was a joke, and it was a black eye on what was otherwise a great NCAA baseball tournament. And that guy should never be behind the plate in another postseason game. He clearly does not have the ability to handle the game. And that's a majority of your job as an umpire, is understanding how to handle the emotions of both sides. He's clearly inferior in that capacity, and Angel Campos should not be behind the plate anymore in college baseball postseason.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like I said, it's baseball is, and this is coming from somebody who I love baseball more than any other sport. Baseball is very slow to adapt, and that's a lot of the reason why there's this big argument that, and you're starting to see it gain traction and popularity amongst younger kids and youth now. But for the longest time, like, baseball was a dying sport because the average age of the consumer or the viewer was in their mid 50s. And so baseball has always had this mantra of, up until now, but even now they're battling it a lot, being this sort of gentleman's sport, and playing by these like old school gentleman's rules. And I think whenever you compare it to something like football, a Major League Baseball or a college umpire would have a stroke if they were talked to the way college football head coaches talk to referees, and they're just like, hey, chill out. And like their fuse is so much longer. And this, the crazy thing is it's the penalty is so much smaller in a grand comparison. Like, one, you say you fucking suck, you're out of the game. You can say you fucking suck 100 times, and he's like, okay, that's been enough. I've played with you. Now it's 15 yards.
Yep.
And that's it. It's not apples to oranges here.
That was the second point I was going to bring up. Is it's hilarious to me what football officials allow coaches to say, which I'm in favor of.
I agree.
I'm
pro.
Shout out to them. We criticize officials a lot. Shout out to officials in football that they're allowed to say horrendous things, get in their face, screaming at them, throwing their headset, having to have other coaches drag them away. And the football officials just take it because they don't have an inferiority complex. And then the penalty comes and it's just 15 yards. After warnings, it's just 15 yards. And you have to do something absurd. Like, there have been a few that I've not liked, but a majority of them you go, holy shit, you're mad at your coach. You're like, shut up. Or it's a player saying something. Very rarely are the officials throwing that flag because a head coach was talking to them. Very rarely. It's usually players saying stuff or assistants saying stuff. It's not the head coach. They give so much leeway.
And it's typically after, like you said, multiple warnings.
Yeah.
Like a lot of warnings.
Yeah, that was the rant I needed to get off my chest about the College World Series. Anything else you want to add about the college baseball tournament?
I think the this is the last thing I'll say, and I don't need to expound upon it. I think the LSU Tigers are a very unlikable baseball team. I forget what the second baseman's name is, but the way and I'm going to sound like such a boomer, and I'm not a boomer when it comes to baseball, but like the way he smears his eye black and like the dangly earring, and I'm just like the pink arm sleeve. I do kind of feel like I'm a boomer, and I'm like, what happened to the game that I loved? You know what I mean? And I hate sounding like that, but like watching him, I was like, this just making me angry.
We're going to be way over an hour on this episode, but yeah, it's like what you said. Baseball was dying because it was always a gentleman's game, or not. It's not dying anymore. They've adapted a bit, but
it was so unnecessarily long.
Always a gentleman's game, like you're saying. But then they took out the exciting aspect of the gentleman's game, which is they self-officiated on the field.
Yes.
And they took that part away, but didn't add any other adaptation to it. So you're no longer allowed to hit batters. They eliminated brawls, basically. You're not allowed to run through the catcher. You're not allowed to slide into the second baseman. And they just pussified the sport and didn't add anything in any other aspect. Then they had the steroid scandal. Power is way down. Baseball just didn't adapt. So now you're finally seeing that come up a little bit.
Yeah.
I might need to bleep out what I said earlier. That's it on baseball. On the NBA Finals, the Oklahoma City Thunder are champions of the NBA 2024-2025. Trevor is not a big NBA guy.
I have nothing to say other than I feel sad that Aaron Nesmith fouled out.
Yeah, Aaron Nesmith fouled out at the end of the game.
I turned it off after Halliburton tore his Achilles. I just turned it off. I was like, I'm going to play and it'll be the show.
Yeah. Achilles injuries. Halliburton tore his Achilles in the first quarter, I believe. That kind of put a damper on the rest of the game, as obviously Halliburton is the Indiana Pacers' best player, and they were the score was going to be decided at that point. There was no chance the Pacers were going to beat the Thunder without Halliburton. There was just no chance. The one reason that I bring this up is I tweeted about it with the Achilles injuries. They are up across the board in all sports, but specifically in basketball is what I'm focusing on. We talked about this, and I put out a tweet that said there's something more going on than the season length or the shoes or anything of that nature. There's something in different moves being done by the players, like the back step. That's not, or the drop step. That's not there's something funky going on. You can look up the numbers. They're not completely perfect, but basically Achilles tears are doubling from what they were like 10 to 15 years ago. And it's obvious. You didn't have 25 and 27-year-old superstars tearing their Achilles consistently. That was an older player injury. And you saw 2 of the league's top 10 players tear their Achilles in the playoffs this year, and Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton. You good?
Sorry, that's the second time I've had to like hold in a sneeze.
I thought you were about to throw up.
That's the second time I've had to hold in a sneeze. And like, I don't know why, whenever I hold in sneezes, like, I think I give myself a concussion. I start to see stars. So I'm just like, there's stars everywhere right now.
But the Achilles, so I put out a tweet, and I'll actually try to read it so I can go into a little bit more detail, as there's a woman's ass on my FYP as I pull up Twitter.
All right.
Great. All right. So this was quoted of saying Tyrese Halliburton tore his Achilles at 25. Tatum tore his Achilles at 27. The NBA needs to shorten the seasons. And I quoted and said, my theory, it's not shoes or length of season. It's the workout/training regimens focused on explosiveness. Every single body has a natural muscle/athleticism limit before your ligaments/joints give out. Modern athletes are pushing way past that. I got a response from Alan Richardson that says, you're close. It's definitely the training regimens, but I'm going to take it a step further and say it's not the explosiveness that is the problem. It's the lack of strength training in addition to it. You don't have that base to handle stress now. Every explosive movement is high stress. I think that he's almost there. Like, I was almost there, and then he added on a touch of what I was getting at, and then I responded with, you're probably right. It's a combo. You can increase the strength of your Achilles and other ligaments, but the natural limit of your ligaments are so much lower than your calf, quad. It creates big discrepancies no matter how well managed with the latest innovations. Look at Tatum's shoulders and arms now versus when he entered the league. So my theory, with no scientific backing, is every single human being's body has a different capacity for muscle. And before, go look at Magic Johnson.
I don't even think that's a theory. I think that's like a well-established.
That's a known thing. I'm just saying I'm not like a biologist or anything, or a PT or something. So anything I'm saying, you can correct me on. It's about why I'm giving.
I'll go ahead and confirm what you're saying is a scientific fact.
So
yeah,
I'm a naturally thin person. When I had so much trouble putting on weight in high school, but the best person to look at it as an example is Jason Tatum. He is an incredibly naturally thin build. And if he was in the NBA in the 1980s or 1990s, or hell, even the early 2000s, he would basically have the same build now at 27 that he did at 19. He would obviously gain some strength. His shoulders would widen a bit, all that stuff, because he has grown and gotten older. And now he's a grown man and not 19 years old. But he's put on, I don't know what the real number is. It looks like he's put on 30, 40 pounds of pure muscle since he got to the league. And all of this is managed by training and technology that is 100 times better than they had in the 90s. Literally, 100 times better. And these injuries are happening more. So I think these guys are putting on more muscle than their bodies can handle. They're also training their ligaments and stabilization and doing all the proper things that you're supposed to. But eventually, you're going to make one movement, one motion that your quad, calf, hamstring, glutes are too strong for that Achilles tendon. And boom, it snaps. That one explosive move where you've put on too much muscle, your Achilles can never catch up to the strength and the additional muscle mass that you've put onto your torso and body. And Tatum is the best example. Now, you could say I'm dumb because Kevin Durant is not that. And he also tore his Achilles.
Kobe. But he was older, like you said. He was older.
So there's two categories of Achilles. There's older.
Yeah.
There's the Kobe. There's the Aaron Rodgers. And then there's guys, that's what is called attention, is guys under 30 just didn't tear their Achilles. I mean, it happened.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just this thing that happened consistently. And so there has to be something. I'm sure there are way brighter minds than me working on this. But I think these players in general, they're not all LeBron James. They aren't all built like an NFL tight end or linebacker and can put on that muscle mass. I think NBA players really need to dial it back on the strength training and the explosiveness training and just play basketball. And I think that will reduce the injuries. If Chet Holmgren puts on 30, 40 pounds of muscle, he will tear his Achilles. His body cannot handle it. Look at Chet Holmgren's shoulders. Look at his legs. If you add 40 pounds of muscle to those legs and shoulders, his Achilles is never going to catch up to that. And I think that's what you're seeing. Somebody out there that knows more than me, let's hear your theory as well. We'd love to hear it on the doorreport.com premium message board.
I'll say this too. I think, and this is not going to be a popular opinion, this is all I have to say on the matter. I think, to an extent, professional sports should legalize some categorizable list of human growth hormones or steroids. And I say that, and I'm saying this because not only do steroids make you bigger, yes, some steroids do make you bigger. What steroids do for the most part is increase your healing time and shorten that. And so I think, especially in a contact sport like football, that is why dudes do HGH, do steroids. They're not taking most of them aren't taking these anabolic steroids. They're not taking DECA or Tren. They're taking human growth hormones to shorten that recovery time because it's such a limited window and they need to get feeling better as quickly as possible. So I do think in a sports season where you do have 82 games, I know football eventually is going to go to 18, baseball 162. These are long seasons, and you tweak your ankle on a Tuesday, it can still hurt in a couple weeks. So I do think, for the betterment of the athletes and for the health and safety, I do think the human growth hormone, I think we need to take another look at it.
And then there's the other caveat I have to add. The calf or leg injury is what people brought up to me with Halliburton. Tatum also had a pre-existing leg injury on that same leg. That's kind of proving my point more. Is now you're having to utilize that quad or a different muscle group with more explosive capability, and boom, the Achilles pops. So you're favoring something using a different muscle group that hasn't been perfectly crafted to work with your Achilles with this great technology, and boom, torn. So the injury does have some contribution. I will say I've said this multiple times in the podcast. In about 10, 15 years, they're going to figure out better testing, and we're going to have a new steroid era with SARMs. I think almost a large percentage of professional athletes are on SARMs. And I think anybody, if nobody knows what SARMs are, selective androgen receptor modulators or something like that, look them up. It's very difficult to test for them. They mimic steroid and HGH capabilities for muscle growth. They were initially developed as osteoporosis, bone regrowth medicine, and then they were transitioned once they realized it grew muscle at incredible capacities. And I always use this as an example because nobody really brings this up. That's what Taylor Lewan got popped for, was Ostrin. That's a SARM. And they're very, very tough to test for, very easy to access. You can literally order them online if you wanted to. So my big concern with what you said, the steroid and HGH and all of that stuff has never been anything to it. They obviously have helpful capabilities to professional athletes. It has always been 100%. You have to be realistic. If players have a list of things they are allowed to use in professional athletics, high school players and college players will access them and will start using them because that's how you have to get there. And that is inevitable. If you've ever played sports in high school, in college, you know there's a lot of usage of banned supplements, even in high school. And that's because they're trying to mimic what they hear college players are doing, and then college players are mimicking what NFL players are doing. And so I'm not trying to be the boomer on this topic, but you cannot move towards legalizing anything like that in professional sports, or you're going to destroy youth sports and college sports.
There's a part of me that wants to give the take to, if you don't want your kid dabbling in that stuff, don't let him play football.
It's true.
That's there's another, I get what you're saying, and I do agree because I'm not pro or anti steroids whatsoever, but I will say you can definitely be too young to where it messes up your nervous system, all of your vital organs. And that's why I think all these professional athletes, or say bodybuilders or powerlifters or competitive strongmen, do it under the supervision of a doctor. In that capacity that it's safe, you can monitor your blood levels.
Still not safe.
as safe as it possibly could, given what you're doing. Like, football's not safe. Football will never be safe, but like as safe as it possibly could be. So I get what you're saying. I don't want kids to take illicit drugs, but there's also a part of me that's like, I don't know. If you're like that worried about it, like don't let your kids.
Yeah, I just think
football.
that the bigger part, the difference is it's so obvious with bodybuilders, and it's not something unless you have that full mindset going in that you know it's bad for you. You know it's going to kill you young if you do it. That's kind of what people go into bodybuilding knowing.
Is they know I'm not going to make it.
Into.
I'm not going to make it to 50 or 60.
Yeah, and that's what is different is.
And you're an adult willing to make that trade-off.
You don't have that risk-reward ratio in your brain if you're a younger athlete, and they will do anything to get to that next level, and that's what's scary to me about that. But I also agree with what you're saying.
I do too. Eventually, and this will be the last thing I say about this, and I'm not like super knowledgeable on steroids, but like I think the way that eventually, and our listeners are probably like, why the hell are they talking about this? I think the way to, in the future, test for things like SARMs, and this is what they did in baseball. I forget who it was that got popped just recently, but instead of necessarily testing for any illicit drugs in the blood, they're going to start testing you for your estrogen levels. And see if you are either on an estrogen, if your estrogen levels are unusually high, or if you're on an estrogen blocker. Because as you synthetically raise your testosterone levels, your body is going to naturally raise your estrogen levels as well. So if you're a man and you have unusually high estrogen levels, they're going to be like, ooh, something's not right here. Or if you have unusually low estrogen levels, they're going to be like, you're on a blocker. So I think that's the future in terms of sports science, and sort of, because like you say, it's hard to test whenever you get blood for SARMs as opposed to like anabolics. I think the future is testing for like estrogen.
Yeah, the SARMs thing I always point out, I think it's going to be basketball that gets popped with it the heaviest, because you're seeing the same conversations happen surrounding basketball players that were happening during the steroid era in baseball. That it's like, look at this player. His shoulders are huge. His arms have gotten so much bigger since they got in the league. It's just the advanced training they have now. I mean, they just have the diet down. They know how to get the off-season training. And you're like, is it? It might be, but this sounds really similar to what I was being told about Mark McGuire. It's like, oh, man, they just have the training down now. He just does it all right. It's all creatine and protein. And it's like, shut up, man. Like, they're using something different.
They put Jose Canseco on the milk ads. Like, it's got to be whole milk.
Yeah, it's whole milk. That's what I feel in
They're
basketball.
like, Lenny Dykstra, it's just somehow dipping is making him huge.
Yeah, and I don't know about football. Football is always getting popped for different things. So
I think
it's
football,
almost
it truly
a known
should be.
thing.
I think for football, it truly should be like just for the recovery.
Yeah, but that's enough steroid and SARM talk for now.
But that is, like I said, my hot take.
Yeah.
Like, I understand people are not. That's not going to be a well-received take.
So to our premium message board questions, we have a lot of responses. We will get to as many as we possibly can. Coming first from G Barks 24 says, who is Diego Pavia and what school does he play football for?
That was an insane tweet.
Some random, what was even the account?
I don't know. I'm going to go grab my water while you look for that.
Whatever the account was, there was some random account, which of course there was a lot of reaction to the Diego Pavia and Bussin' with the Boys interview. It was just very funny to me how the modern reactionary media landscape in sports is, that the moment that something like that happens, everyone has to have a take and an opinion on it to capitalize on the wave of popularity. That was my big issue, and why it stuck out to me is not that anything the guy was saying was horribly wrong, or that he's allowed to have the opinion that he doesn't believe Vanderbilt is a serious contender, like Diego Pavia said. That's an understandable take. I'm not going to shit on anyone for having that take. What bothers me is he formed that take without ever having, and that team formed that take and needed to have an opinion without clearly ever actually watching the team play. And from the rip, they tried to blame it on their poor intern who led with the question. He pronounced it Diego Pavia. And then the other, there were two people that were hosting the show. One of them said Diego Pavia multiple times. Then they referenced a Hawaii Week 0 game that never happened. or it did happen, but it was not Diego Pavia at quarterback.
Mike Wright.
And then they tried to backtrack that by saying, no, I was actually talking about when he was at New Mexico State and they played Hawaii. And I'm like, sure, buddy, sure. But the larger form of that is like, you don't have to have an opinion about everything. Like, if you don't know much about it, you don't have to spend 10 minutes reading articles and looking up stats and then go live on the air and make yourself look like a fool. You don't have to do that. You can just let a story go. It's simple. You don't have to cover it like that. Was it Chicago based?
I don't know.
The Woodward Sports Network from Michigan. So that was the part. It's like
not even
you can have
South
such a
Mason Dixon.
Yeah, you can have such a confident, dismissive, shit on him opinion, and you don't even know how to pronounce his name. And then there was the one guy that never actually said his name, continuously replying to people trying to defend his take. And I'm like, dude, you didn't correct him. I'm like, anyone, if I hear you horribly mispronounce someone's name, I'm going to be like, it's actually pronounced this. I'm not going to shame you, but I'm going to be like, it's not pronounced Halliburton. It's pronounced Halliburton. I would say that too.
I mean, I feel like we've done that a couple times whenever Nico was the quarterback.
Yeah.
We're like, it's Iamaliava, not
yes.
Iamaliavia.
Yeah.
You know what I'm sorry, whatever somebody would say, whatever
But
Peter
I just
Parks
had
would
to
say.
get that out there. Thank you for the question, G Borks. We started a bad trend with the picture we put, or the video we put out from episode 320. Yet another door lawyer says, F, marry, kill.
Oh, yes.
Blake, George, and Alex.
Oh, no. Oh, God.
So I'm going to give my answer. I'm marrying all of them and then killing myself.
I'm not going to cop out. I'm going to give a real answer. I'm going to... God, this is so tough because I truly do like love all of these guys. I'm gonna marry George. Family man, married, new father, beautiful accent, makes a lot of money. I love George. We'll talk about baseball all day long. He'll take me to Cape Cod. We'll watch baseball together, enjoy lobster rolls. It'll be beautiful. I'm gonna fuck Blake. I'm gonna fuck Blake. I think he's a lover boy at heart, and I think he would make a great lover. And for once in my life, I would like to be the little spoon, and I think he can deliver on that. But here's the thing: I don't want to kill Alex because, like, I also want to marry Alex, but I don't want to kill him. But like now, I guess I have to kill Alex.
Sorry, it's a seniority thing, Alex. There's nothing we could do. It is what it is.
I guess I'll kill him because he said he called me a communist pig a couple episodes ago. So I guess that's what I used to justify.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Then he goes on to say, the real question being, who in y'all's time following Vandy has been your least favorite SEC QB opponent and why?
Tyler Bray. Tyler Bray for me. I hated Tyler Bray. I just thought the way he looked was stupid. I thought the way Vols fans raved about him was stupid. I never thought he was a good quarterback, but everybody loved to like just glaze him. So I'll go Tyler Bray. I hated Tyler Bray.
That's a good answer. I'm thinking through because my initial answer would be Josh Dobbs. But he did such great things allowing Vanderbilt to win. The Josh Dobbs reason is simple. I watch a lot of SEC football, and every single fucking time he took the field, they told the story about him and his internship with NASA and being an aerospace engineer. It drove me up a wall. I get it. It's a cool story. He has a real major as a football player. Whoa. He's not an idiot studying sociology. Whoa. But it was like, okay, that's cool. Is there any other story on this entire Tennessee team? Does Josh Dobbs have anything else about him you can possibly look up? Or is the entire broadcast team with ESPN just that lazy that they just repeat the story over and over? So that's not even really Josh Dobbs' fault necessarily, but that's why I'm going to say it.
I'll give my honorable mention, and this would actually probably be my number 2. And every time I say this, people think I'm a terrible person. I hated Tim Tebow because
Really?
I was so young and he he killed Vanderbilt. And I would just be like, please stop the games out of hand. Like, stop scoring touchdowns, Tim Tebow. And he just kept scoring touchdowns. And I hated Tim Tebow. I did.
South Carolina's walk-on quarterback that led the drive against Clarkley. Yeah. We got to get through these. We're going to be way over an hour. We still have like 30 more questions. We're not going to get to all these, unfortunately.
Oh my God. My last one I'll say. Ole Miss quarterback 2013 through 2015. Bo Wallace.
Okay, that's a good one.
I hated Bo Wallace.
That's a good one. From Unabridged says, what position room do you think will shine next year in football?
Linebacker.
Yeah, linebacker and tight end.
Tight end, yeah.
And actually, I'm going to add one in safety.
I would agree.
Is there a position group you are concerned with?
Wide receiver.
Wide receiver and defensive back. That's number one and number two. And then the, of course, automatic concern, which should be number one, even though I don't think it's going to be bad. I have good expectations for them, is the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
That should always be your number one concern as a Vanderbilt fan. They have a lot of good pieces, but we have not seen them all play together. So wide receiver is the obvious concern because they have one guy returning with proven production. And Richie. They have one guy with returning actual proven production in Junior Sherrill. And then question mark. And then corner is just, have they done enough to improve? Because that was a group that kind of struggled last season. Did they do enough to improve? We'll see.
Yeah.
VandyFan95 says, sort Clarkley, Mark Byington, and Tim Corbin into Hogwarts houses. Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, or Slytherin.
So I was a big Harry Potter
I
kid
was a
growing
huge
up.
Harry Potter kid.
I'm going to go... I think two of these coaches are actually going to the same house. I think Clarkley and Tim Corbin are actually both going to Gryffindor because they're both very strong in their morals, very like believe in what they do, really like to a fault. And I think even to like the dismay of some fans, like really do like refuse to cheat. So I'd put them in Gryffindor. I think Mark Byington is Slytherin, and I'll say this. Not all Slytherins are bad. I think Mark Byington is very cunning, and you can read between the lines here. I think Mark Byington will do whatever it takes to win.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go Corbs and Clark, Gryffindor. I'll go Byington, Slytherin.
Okay, I'm going basically agree with you. Clarkley is Gryffindor for me. A guy that truly came back home to the school that he played football for, his hometown team. True good-hearted intentions. This is where he wants to be. He doesn't care how difficult it is. This is what he wants to achieve, and he wants to do it here. Tim Corbin, I'm putting him in Ravenclaw. I think that's the more cerebral house of Harry Potter that I think is a little bitchy sometimes and a little high on their own horse sometimes, and rightfully so sometimes. I'm not saying Tim Corbin's not right to be high on his horse. He has 2 national championships, but I'm putting him in Ravenclaw. Mark Byington, I'm going to agree with you. That was, I was thinking I was going to be different putting him in Slytherin.
He screams Slytherin.
And not everyone in Slytherin is evil. That doesn't mean he's evil. It's just cutthroat, want to win.
Yeah.
And that's what Mark Byington is. I don't think he's doing anything at Vanderbilt out of love for the university. He's doing it out of the love of winning and being a damn good basketball coach.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
So we kind of agree on that.
Great questions.
Yeah,
great questions.
World's Strongest Vandy fan. I'm going to save this one for Alex. But then he goes on to say, can I propose a lot 2 whiskey and deadlifts party week 1? World's Strongest Vandy fan versus Hack Squad.
Dude, World's Strongest Vandy fan would kill me. Like, I think my deadlift is pretty good. He's deadlifting like 800, 900, 1,000 pounds. Like, if you don't know this guy in real life, I'm not going to dox him, but like, I almost want to tweet out like his workout videos. It's truly like Herculean stuff.
He is one of those guys that I love him. He's a great guy.
One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in your life.
But whenever you go up, there's occasionally people like this. Trevor's a big guy, strong guy. No offense, he doesn't quite have this. When you like dap up and he gives you a hug, it's like, oh, he could easily squeeze and kill me.
Yeah.
Like, I think Trevor could squeeze and kill me, but I think I could fight out of it before that. He could squeeze and kill me, and there is nothing I could do.
No, I think I agree. I'm about 260 pounds. If he got his hands on me, there's nothing I could do about it.
dude.
And I'm not trying to like glaze him in any capacity. Like if he got his hands on me, there's nothing I could do.
He's earned the username.
Yes.
World's strongest Vandy fan. That's not hyperbole.
No.
He literally is the strongest Vandy fan in the world. And I think maybe the strongest.
He might be the strongest
than
guy in Tennessee because he's won multiple strongman competitions and like competed for nationals.
Like he would, obviously training for sports and training for football is slightly different. He would obliterate literally everyone in lifting on the football team. It wouldn't be close. So yeah, definitely lot 2 whiskey. I will participate in that portion. If you want to run a 5K together, that's what I'm currently training for. We can do that, but I'll leave the deadlifts to Trevor and World's Strongest Vandy Fan. He also had a baseball question that we'll save for Alex. Or we already asked Alex. We're definitely not recording segment 1 and segment 2 out of order. There's quite a few responses. Blake said to the fuck, marry, kill. He said, I'm getting killed. Blake, you did not get killed. You got fucked.
Which he might rather say he got killed.
All right. I'm trying to understand this question. We're getting too many responses now, so I'm going to have to start reading these beforehand, guys. I wanted to live react, but it's hard to filter through now. Okay, which program is more likely to outperform the expectation this year? I guess assuming basketball expectations is just making the tournament and football is a bowl game. If you disagree with the expectation, then by all means, let me know. I think the expectations are a little higher than that for both. I think you're not just expecting Vanderbilt basketball to make the tournament this year. You're expecting them to not even be on the bubble in a capacity. You're expecting a higher seed this year, especially with what they've done in the portal. And I think it would be a disappointment this year for Vanderbilt football if they won the same amount of games as last year. I wouldn't be mad. Like I'm not going to come on here like, Corkley shit the bed. Not like that. So that's a tough one. I got asked that on
You'll
Texas
never hear
podcast.
us complain about 6 and 6.
Yeah, I got asked that on the Texas podcast I recorded about an hour before this, and I was like, that's a tough answer. Because I don't know. It's hard to say because 6 and 6, you're not going to hear Vanderbilt fans complain. But is that the expectation this year? I think the expectation this year is taking a couple wins in the other direction and being 7-5, 8-4 is the expectation. If that's the expectation and becoming an 8 seed in the NCAA tournament is the expectation for basketball, I think it's way more likely basketball exceeds expectations.
I think I'll say basketball because I think it's so much easier to have such an immediate turnaround in basketball than it is football. I will say, though, for football, I think Vanderbilt might exceed expectations in football because another factor, I'm not super high on SEC football this year. So, like, if we break it down, like, Alabama, a lot of question marks. Georgia, a lot of question marks. LSU, a lot of question marks. Florida, Tennessee, like your big dogs. It's kind of like just Texas right now. Really.
Texas, Georgia.
Well, but I think Georgia has a ton of question marks.
I think
they can be good, but it's also like you're going into this being like, Georgia is definitely going to make the college football playoff, but like I wouldn't be shocked if they're like the 10th team in the nation.
There's a lot more up in the air in the SEC this year, I feel like. As before, it's like you go into the season thinking, well, Georgia's dominant. Yeah. This team. And
we can even take Georgia out because we don't play them either.
You have Texas. Texas, to me, is so clearly the best team in the conference. I've got to dig in more and do more research, but I think that will hold true when we do our season preview.
But it's like Alabama has a lot of question marks. Kentucky football is not in a great spot right now. Missouri football has a lot of question marks. South Carolina, you could.
They are a good team.
But with that being said, like the emotional roller coaster that is Beamer ball, like we have to remember that as well. I'm trying to think about Vanderbilt. LSU, Brian Kelly, this might be his last season.
Could be.
Like
got Nussmeier.
But I know football is a ways away. I'm not totally sold that LSU game will be a total loss. I think Vanderbilt could get the dub there.
So Bex for VU asks, I'll ask a variation of that question. Rank these 4 possible outcomes from most likely to least likely. Number 1, NCAA tournament appearance for men's basketball. Number 2, Sweet 16 for women's basketball. 3, super regional appearance for baseball. 4, bowl game for football.
Ooh.
So I know mine.
I've got mine off rip.
Yeah, number 1, NCAA tournament appearance for basketball. That's
Agreed.
number 1.
Agreed.
Not even close to me. Number 2 is actually going to be bowl game for football.
Agree.
Number 3 is going to be Sweet 16 for women's basketball, and number 4 is going to be super regional for baseball.
Totally agree.
Now, I really do think the Sweet 16 for women's basketball and super regional appearance for baseball is a real toss-up for me. That's very close. I've got to see more of what happens this offseason in baseball. I really like what I've seen so far. Last episode, we were not saying that, and in segment 1, we will hit on that a lot with Alex. But yeah, that's my ranking.
I totally agree.
A few more responses. I don't know if we're going to have an answer to this one, but I'll read it. Bryant714 says, who do you believe is the best student athlete in their respective sport currently at Vanderbilt? My pick would be Michaela Blakes, and my wife said Eli Stowers. Aluria McBride, track and field. Sawyer Hawks, and more I'm forgetting should probably be in consideration as well.
Are we talking like truly like student athlete and then both sides?
I think they're just meaning generally great on the field, great off the field, just great representation, great smart sounding guy.
I think Eli. Eli for football, certainly.
Well, I just think Eli Stowers in general. I mean, he's a hell of a guy. People know I'm not the most religious person. He is a very devout, walk it like he talks it Christian man.
Yeah.
And like he appeared on some podcast that like is faith in sports or something, and I listened to it, and he's just an incredibly well-spoken guy and very humble. The most humble number 1 player at his position you will ever see.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So I'm gonna go on Eli Stowers.
You know, I'll also go, I think honorable mention, I think Devin McLaughlin. I've heard I've never met him personally. Off the court, I've heard nothing but wonderful things about Devin McLaughlin as a human being.
Just gonna say, cornerback.
That's a shot at Colby Taylor. I love Colby Taylor, man.
I love him.
I might get a Colby Taylor jersey.
This is where we're going off the rails. Another F, Mary kill.
Fuck yeah.
From Vandy Jr. too.
Hell yeah, our guy.
One of my gilfs.
What?
Billionaire, the home plate umpire on Sunday.
What the hell is a gilf?
Great grandmother I'd like to fuck.
All right, we're killing her.
No, I'm killing the home plate ump on Sunday.
No, I'm killing the gilf.
I'm marrying the billionaire. I'm fucking the gilf.
Yeah, I'm marrying the billionaire easy. I'm fucking the umpire.
And then if it has to be TDR related, he says Frida, Chester, or Vandy Jr. Frida's boss, Chester Copperpot, or Vandy Jr.
Is this the summer of fuck, marry, kill?
Yeah.
I'm going to marry Chester. Chester's my dog. I love Chester. I'm going to marry Chester. I'm going to fuck Frida. I'm going to kill Vandy Jr.
Yeah. I'm going in that order.
Vandy
I'm sorry,
Jr.
Vandy
I'm
Jr.
so sorry.
It's an age thing. That's it.
It is. It's an age cutoff.
Okay, so Vandy Jr. had a very long statistical breakdown relating back to the data that you summarized. So I'm going to jump to that for him. And he highlighted things in green. Clearly spent a lot of time going through this. So Trevor, if you want to give him an answer like fully on the board, up to you.
I can do that.
Says, I will try to be brief with my question, but that really isn't possible, so I'll ask anyway. However, I will try to color code green/red to speed things up. Green must be read on air. Red doesn't have to be read on air. Goes on to say, I'll just read the green. He says, in an excellent June 4th article, The Eyes Do Not Deceive, almost Dr. Trevor Hulan, PhD, to be was lauded with praise for his analysis, spot on, incredible, great work. Trevor approached this from a micro level, but only focused on offense. If one were to take a macro look at team OPS, both Vandy and its opponents, different conclusions can be reached. To do this, one simply must take Vandy's OPS, opponent OPS, and then subtract with Vandy OPS representing team's offense as opposed to calculating goes on to say, I'm not going to read all of this. Using that approach, the conclusion is that only statistically significant results, R equals 0.90, a very strong correlation, is that Vandy's OPS and opponent OPS doesn't matter that much. What matters is if the difference between the two. Next most important is opponent's hitting, Vandy pitching, but it's only a moderate negative correlation. Least important is Vandy hitting, a moderate positive correlation. It appears that team pitching is more important than team hitting in a macro sense. I'll hang up and listen to your thoughts. So what we were saying, this is like a big part of it. Vanderbilt has had basically the last 4 years still the best pitching staff in the country. And you have a baseline requirement for pitching talent. But what takes you to the next level in postseason play is offensive production. And I think that's what Trevor is hitting at. It's not meant to dismiss the impact of pitching.
No.
It's meant to say that has to be there. The pitching, that's a base requirement to be a good team. Now, to be a championship team, you have to, in modern college baseball, you have to throw in home runs and high OPS.
Yeah.
We're not even disagreeing with you. I think it's like
it's almost
pitching
like
pitching is almost like your offensive and defensive lines. They have to be there for the skill position guys to matter. If you don't have a good offensive line, you can have the best quarterback, best running back, best receivers. It's not going to matter that much.
Yeah.
In the same way, if you have a shitty pitching staff, your offense can only take you so far.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, if you're looking at it at a macro level, you're almost getting into like value proposition and game theory, in which I am not. I took like one game theory class, and I'm not super well versed in that.
There's a lot of other questions. I'm trying to figure out which ones to read next. JD, I will pre-read these and get them organized next time. JDL Cav says, number 1, can you handle the truth? Number 2, in men's basketball, Vandy scheduled a home and home with Wake Forest. Have you had an opportunity to look at ACC basketball teams yet? If so, what do you think of the team Wake has assembled? I have not. I haven't had a chance.
I will say in the era of the transfer portal, I don't think you can necessarily look at last year's team and then be like, okay, based on last year, they're going to be this way this year, like you could in the past. But if we're in a alternate timeline where like 5, 6, 7 years in the past, Wake Forest basketball was not good last year. I did not hear of them making any heavy splashes in the ACC neither. So
yeah, we'll have to dig into that. I'd just be talking out of my ass. That's all I'm going to read on this. We have a lot of replies back and forth. Thank you to everybody that submitted premium message board questions. Thank you to Vandy Jr., always very active on the board. I just want to keep shouting him out.
Vandy Jr. is probably my favorite poster.
Yeah, I'm sorry we had to kill you.
I am. You really are our favorite poster.
It was truly an ageism thing. That was it. It was just an ageism thing, purely. So deepest apologies. I know he will give a shit about that on the board. There is no doubt in my mind, and I cannot wait for it. He's going to be like, TDR said they were going to kill me. Is going to be the title or something. I can't wait. There's also a fun discussion about Captain D's on the premium message board.
Oh, so you're not aware of the Captain D's lore on the board.
I'm not.
So the Captain D's lore has been a thing on this particular board for like 10, 15
Okay, see,
years.
I'm going to be honest, I was a 24/7 board guy growing up.
Ooh, I'm just playing.
I never posted. I posted everything on Twitter.
Captain D's and Hush Puppies is a deep lore on this particular board.
I'll stay out of that lore.
And that's why in my initial post, I was like, guys, I've been here a long time. And I referenced Captain D's to be like, hey, street check. I'm one of you guys.
Yeah. I'm fresh.
I love Hush Puppies.
Oh, then I accidentally referenced the lore properly.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe it's just in my brain. I am one of you guys. Yeah. Anything else you want to add here on episode 321 before we close it out?
No.
All right. For myself, Will Byrum, my co-host Trevor Hulan, and shout out to Alex Kurbegov for joining us in segment 1. This has been episode 321 of The Door Report, powered by 615 Collectibles.